Hello and welcome back to Learn to Live podcast. I'm your host Emelia J, and for today I'm kind of just going to be doing a little bit of a random episode. I've just got a little bit to talk about today. I haven't really planned out what I want to talk about today massively. I'm kind of just going to go with whatever is in my head because I've got a lot going on in there at the moment. This is my last week before uni starts again for me for the next academic year, so up until I think it's like 9 months, so up until May time roughly. I'm very excited. I said in the first episode of the season that I'm really excited for uni to start again. So I start on the 1st of October. I do online part-time university for anyone who is wondering or doesn't know. I have mentioned it before in another episode, I'm sure, but in case you forgot or you just haven't listened to that, then yeah, that is what I do. I'm studying English and I'm about to start my second module, so I have to do 4 modules to get my qualification. So this is my second year. Once I finish the second year, I will be halfway there, which is super exciting. I just want to say as well, I have decided to stop editing these podcasts really. So if you hear me say a lot, it's just because I'm a little bit nervous. Before I would spend so much time going through the podcast and just listening, editing it all out. But honestly, it kind of just destroys the motivation for me to want to record the episode. So I'm going to keep it more real and realistic, and I think the more I do it, the easier it will get, and I'll stop saying it's kind of just what I do when I'm nervous, both in person but also when I'm recording as well. So yeah, but the first thing I wanted to talk about today is uni. I got my textbooks come through the post the other day, which was really exciting. I was kind of annoyed because I'd been at home all day. I didn't go out until I think it was about 5 o'clock. And I went out, and literally about 10 minutes after I went out, they got delivered. And I was so excited. I wanted to sit there and start looking through them. But by the time they arrived, I'd actually gone out for like an hour and a half or so. So I was like, oh my God, it's typical that they would arrive when I had just left the house. So, we got over it. So I have, I have, I have gone through and kind of come up with a schedule for myself, as I do find it difficult to keep up with routines a lot of the time, mainly physically, because sometimes my physical state is just a little bit unpredictable. So sometimes, I'm not able to do what I need to do. I mean, a lot of the time I'm not. I kind of have to compromise and do all of that, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But I have come up with a schedule that is kind of flexible, so I'm hoping we get on quite well with it, and that I'm able to keep up with that routine, as it kind of just seems like the best thing at the moment. I did try and do this last uni year, but what I wanted to do was do all of my uni work in like 1 or 2 days. So I get about 16 hours of work a week. So take that as you will. I wanted to, sit down for 2 days a week and proper crack down on it. That is not realistic for me at all. So last uni year I did struggle with the workload and getting everything done, but also like keeping up, if that makes sense. Like, I just felt like I was constantly behind, and even if I wasn't behind, I felt like I was, or I just struggled with the motivation to do it. So I have come up with this new schedule. If you want to see what that's like, then I am starting to do vlogs and stuff on my on my TikToks. I'm doing little mini vlogs and days in the life and stuff. So if you want to see what that looks like, then you can head over to my TikTok. I will have it linked in the description. But that leads me on to something that I'm going to talk about in a second. First, I'm going to finish talking about uni before I go off on another tangent. But I have done a couple of things this year to help. Learnt from last year, I've done a couple of things that I think will help. The first thing is I've got a new desk chair. Now, my old desk chair I'd had for quite a few years, literally like 8 years, and it wasn't very comfortable anymore, but I wasn't really sure what to get, if that makes sense, for a new chair. I mean, up until May, so when I finished my first year of uni, I didn't have space for a bigger, comfier chair like I've got now. Right now, I've just gotten a gaming chair, and it's so much more comfortable, and the few hours that I've spent at my desk since I got this chair are already so much more comfortable compared to my old chair, which was just a regular desk chair. Whereas this one's a lot more comfortable and it's a lot more supportive for my back and my hips, which is really great. We need that. So yeah, getting a new chair has definitely helped set me up better in preparedness. I feel more prepared because I've got a much better chair. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to scratch the microphone. I've got a much better chair. It's a lot more comfortable, and just from when I have been at my desk recently, I have noticed that I'm able to concentrate easier because I'm more comfortable, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the main thing that I've done to help prepare for uni, other than the sort of like schedule routine sort of thing that I just spoke to you guys about. And yeah, I've also been planning some content. So I have always wanted to do YouTube, basically. But it's just something that I did try it multiple times, but I just never was happy with it completely, or for a long time I was very worried about what people would think, and I wasn't happy that people would be able to have it at any point, if that makes sense. I know that sounds like the weirdest thing ever, but I was just so scared of what people would say. And although, it doesn't matter what people say, for a long time it had a massive effect on, the things that I would do, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is kind of why I didn't get into that properly. And then once I left school, I was kind of like, you know what, I can do this now, Although people that I went to school with could still very easily find it. I didn't talk to a lot of people that I went to school with. I only talked to probably about 10 people that I've ever been to school with. So that kind of, I stopped worrying about that so much. But then I just really struggled with the editing. I did mention this in, I think it was the first episode of this season. But I just really struggled with the editing side of both audio and visual stuff. I think it's because it's just not something that I'm as interested in, especially audio. So I find it really difficult to concentrate and find the motivation to do it. But also just sitting down and doing it. Like I said, I do struggle a lot with sitting down at the computer for a while. I do like to get up, take breaks, and have a little bit of a change of scenery. So yes, the YouTube thing kind of just didn't work out for me as of yet. I think, right now I don't have the budget to be getting an editor. I think maybe in the future, it would be lovely to have an editor and be able to do YouTube. But I was like, why don't I just try doing little mini vlogs on TikTok? Because they could literally be literally a minute long. And I thought, well, you know what? We're going to try that. So if you are interested in seeing me more, up to date, my content on TikTok would be more up to date than my podcast, because with the podcast I do have a little bit of a backlog, if that's the right word. I'm a few weeks behind, a few weeks ahead of when the podcasts are uploaded, if that makes sense. So right now I'm on the 3rd episode I'm recording the third episode, but the first episode doesn't come out until Friday, and it's currently Tuesday. So I hope that makes sense. Whereas with my TikTok, it will be a lot more closer to what is actually going on currently, if that makes sense. So yeah, I today uploaded a little mini vlog. I did like a come on a solo date with me. So I decided to go out on a solo date, obviously, as you probably just assumed from what I said. But I've been planning some content again, TikTok and podcasts. So the podcast, I'm kind of just going with the flow a lot more. I have a few things I want to talk about, but I'm kind of just going to pick one or two or a few, whatever it is, when I'm about to sit down and record the episode, as I just think it's a little bit more I don't want it to feel too structured. One, because that takes a lot more time and energy, and that is something that I am limited on. So that's one reason for that. But also I just want it to feel a little bit more raw and realistic. I don't want it to feel so structured and put together, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've come up with a bit of a plan for at least from now until the end of October. Again, I've kind of just got to go and see what works for me and what doesn't, and all this and that. So yeah, I am quite happy with what I've achieved today. I have, like I said, I edited that TikTok, I've uploaded it, I've come up with some ideas for more TikToks and kind of just planned out. The good thing about a lot of my ideas, at least, that I'm planning on putting on TikTok are a lot of them are vlogs. So it's going to be stuff that I'm doing anyway. I don't have to go out of my way to do something so that I can film it, if that makes sense. So that is definitely helpful. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I did actually plan to talk about this in the first season, but like I said in the beginning of this season, I just needed to take a break from the podcast. So what I'm going to be talking about today, I am going to be talking about alcohol. So if that is something that you don't want to hear about, because, for whatever reason it is, then maybe not listen to the rest of this. But I figured, especially as, uni is starting, people move into uni, people moving back into uni, freshers are, about to start, or they have started. I don't really keep up with that because I don't go into in-person uni, but I thought this would be a good time to talk about why I quit drinking alcohol, because I feel like a lot of the uni culture is drinking. Now, this assumption that I have made purely comes from things that I have learnt from other people. I haven't experienced this for myself. Like I said, I do online uni. I still live in my family home, so I've never been to uni, in the sense that I've never been to halls or accommodation, whatever, anything like that. So, I feel like when I started thinking about uni, the first thing that came to my mind is that everyone likes to go out drinking, clubbing, partying, all this and that, doing all that sort of stuff. Now, I have spoken about uni life in one of the episodes. I think it was episode 2 or 3 of the first season, with one of my friends who is a university student. She does do in-person uni. So I think we did talk about the clubbing, drinking side of things a little bit as well. But this is going to be kind of just I'm just going to be talking about my journey with alcohol, really. I wasn't a massive drinker. I never really have been. I'm 19, by the way. In the UK, the legal drinking age is 18. I know in America, it's 21. So if you're thinking you're 19, why are you drinking? UK, it's 18, for those of you who aren't sure. I was never really a big drinker, and I kind of feel like I always, when I did drink, it was because, other people around me were drinking. I felt like, I didn't want to be that person that was like, oh no, no, thank you, because I know a lot of people question that. They're kind of just like, oh, well, why aren't you drinking? Like, when you're a teenager, I feel like a lot of the time you're expected to drink. You're expected to want to get drunk and drink alcohol and all this and that. And that was something that it wasn't until I started like really consciously thinking about it that I realised that I don't really have a reason to drink. I feel like a lot of people, they get drunk, so they could have fun, and, or, sometimes, I know a lot of people are just like, oh, I just need a drink, I've had a bad day or whatever it is. Now, obviously, you can deal with things however it is you want, but for me, I know that that is not something that's healthy for me, and it's not something I resonate with. It's not a habit that I wanted to form, using alcohol to find a way to, have fun or enjoy certain, experiences, or to help, take my mind off of things. For me, I felt like I never really had a reason to want to drink, other than, there were certain drinks that I just, I enjoyed the taste of. That was completely fine. But when I started thinking, okay, well, do I actually want to drink right now? Or is it I feel like I should, or I want to because of something else? So if it was like, oh, well, I feel like I need to drink because everyone else is drinking, I'd be like, right, okay, well, why don't you just have a different drink, And like I said, I'm not really around that many people that drink anymore. Like, when I go out, although some of the people I go out with drink, I am usually the designated driver, to be honest. So obviously I don't drink when I'm out with friends, because I am the only friend I go out with that drives currently. So obviously I'm not going to be drinking regardless of whether I wanted to drink or not. But also, one of my best friends doesn't drink at all. And she's the friend that I see the most as well. So we don't, just casually drink or whatever. So that definitely limits the amount of times I'm exposed to it, if that makes sense. Now, I decided to do like a 6-week challenge, really, in February. So there was one weekend where I did drink. I was with a friend at the time, and we decided, just to have some wine, and I just wanted to try it, to be honest. I felt like I couldn't really say no, if I'm being honest. And so after that experience, I was kind of just like, right, I'm going to go 6 weeks without drinking any alcohol. And I did, and it was very easy. I actually went from, I think that weekend was in February, I think. I went all the way up until my birthday, which is at the end of April, without a single sip of alcohol. And honestly, I didn't even really think about it either. Like I said, not that many people around me actually really drink anymore, and those that do, they're not people that I see regularly. And like I said, when I do see them, we're not usually drinking anyway, because I am the designated driver. So obviously, when I go out with certain people, we don't drink. Very occasionally I would get my mum to drive me places if I was going to have a drink. But like I said, it started becoming less frequent for me. And then, the change definitely occurred when I stopped, when I finished year 13. And then once everyone had, started their working, apprenticeships and going to uni, obviously I started seeing people less, because, people have, a lot more responsibility. In that case, those people around me have more responsibility than compared to when we were at school. And so, yeah, I stopped seeing those people as much. So, it was more casual things that we would do, going out for lunch rather than, going out for cocktails and stuff like that. Again, this wasn't really something that I would do that much, but those friends are people I see less frequently now, so I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit. But like I was saying, I started this 6-week challenge. I went from, I think it was about the middle of February up until the 23rd of April with no drinks. I didn't really think about it that much, to be honest. And then on my birthday, I wasn't really planning on drinking, but my mum had bought, I think it was just like this raspberry vodka. I love raspberries. They are like one of my all-time favourite fruits. So I was kind of thinking like, right, okay, I really want to try this. Now, in the few times, there's been about 2 or 3 times since February when I started the challenge that I have had something to drink. And each of those times I made sure that it was a conscious decision and that I had actually thought about it. So what my process is kind of just like, right, do I actually want a drink? Why do I want a drink? Now, in this case, it was because I wanted to try the new drink that my mum had bought. Rather than, I want to take my mind off of something, or I feel like I need to drink, or whatever it is. I actually, I was able to acknowledge that I wanted a drink. And then as well, I just made sure that I was being conscious about how much I was drinking. I have never liked being drunk. It just makes me, obviously, it makes you disorientated. Obviously, that is literally like alcohol. And for me, I do get dizzy sometimes, just with my health reasons, whatever. Dizziness is something I get, and sometimes, I get exhausted, and drinking makes me less aware of, my physical well-being, how I am. And also, I don't really know how to expand on that anymore. It just, being drunk was not something that I resonated with, and it kind of just took me out of reality. And I've been trying to become more conscious about what I'm doing, and this is something I've been trying to be more conscious in working towards my goals and just what I want my everyday life to be like. That has been something I've been working towards since I started my spiritual journey. A lot of people would call it. I don't really know what to call it. I feel like spiritual journey is a little bit broad, but when it comes to my mental well-being and the spiritual side to me, I'm trying to become more aware of what I'm doing, and I'm trying to figure out the reasoning behind a lot of things, if that makes sense. Even if it's just like, I've had a bad day today, why is it? If that makes sense. And getting drunk, drinking alcohol is disorientating for anyone, but especially for me. And the one thing I hated, I think this is actually the worst thing, was the aftermath. Obviously, you're going to be hungover most of the time. And I am massively scared of being sick. I have a massive phobia of it. And so when I did drink, I wouldn't let myself get to the point where I thought I was actually going to be sick, if that makes sense, because of that. So I've never once been ill like that from drinking alcohol, which is brilliant because I tried my hardest, I put my best efforts into that. But when I would consider, right, well, I don't drink most of the time because I want to, I stopped wanting to drink less, so I did it. Now, I do understand that a lot of people, it isn't that simple for them. I didn't have an issue with alcohol in that sense. I wasn't using it as a way to cope with anything. I do completely understand that is a lot of people who struggle with alcohol. That is their method of coping, and I do hope that anyone who is going through that can get the help that they need. For me, I kind of realised, it kind of just came to me one day. I think it was actually when I was meditating, and something was just telling me there's just no reason for it. Like, if you don't want to drink because you like the taste of it, if you don't want to get drunk, you don't like feeling drunk, you don't like feeling hungover, then why do it? And ever since then, I've been a lot more conscious about it, and that has really lowered the amount of times that I think, oh, well, do I actually want to drink right now? So yeah, that's kind of my journey with it at the moment. I I haven't had a drink. I actually don't even remember the last time I had a drink. I have no idea. But it's something that I wanted to talk about because I know a lot of people my age, the culture is drinking and partying and clubbing and doing all that sort of stuff, and that is something that I just have no interest in. And for a while I felt alone in that. Like, I felt like I should want to go out clubbing. I felt like I should be wanting to drink and get drunk and all this and that. I felt quite alone in the fact that I didn't want to drink. So that is why I wanted to talk about it today. If you're someone who also doesn't drink, for whatever reason it is, you're not alone. So that's what I just wanted to talk about that today. Get that off my chest a little bit. I know as well, like, I know some people are going to think, oh, right, well, why are you even, like, going on down this road? But I see a lot of people who are, living more consciously, whether that's environmentally, health-wise, spiritually, in, all different ways. But I see a lot of people talking about how, obviously, alcohol is bad for your body in so many ways. But alcohol is legal. And when you realise how bad alcohol is... Now, I'm not going to start dropping reasons here because I am not a doctor. I don't have a list of resources to give out here, so I'm not actually going to quote anything. I'm just going to, bring up a few things, opinions I have heard of other people's, and if you want to do your own research into it, then you can. But I've heard a lot of other people say that, alcohol is made, obviously, isn't it? It's like a man-made substance that is toxic, but it's legal, and it is a massive, massive, massive income. Like, it's a massive money maker, really. And I just find it so funny how something that causes so many health issues mentally and physically as well. Obviously, not only is alcohol bad for your liver, obviously, but it also can be bad for your brain and development. And obviously it can it obviously is linked to things like alcoholism, as well as, just like any sort of substance abuse, even if it's not, alcoholism. I can't say that word, alcoholism. Is linked to a lot of things. And I just find it crazy that something that is such a big issue is legal. And it's a man-made product. It's not... But the reason why it's legal is because it makes so much money. It's a massive... the alcohol industry is... obviously they're millionaires. Well, actually, I don't know that for a fact, but I imagine they're millionaires, billionaires. And a lot of them come from the alcohol industry, at least, the companies and stuff. So, sorry, my chair's squeaking a little bit. But I just find it quite crazy, honestly. That's just another reason why I stopped drinking it, was just because I didn't want to contribute to that. I don't believe, obviously I'm not saying that I believe that you should be healthy all the time. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. But for me, I'm trying to do things that resonate more. Obviously, there are certain things I have to do that don't resonate with me. If I only did the things I resonated with, then my life would be completely different. But there's certain things that you have to do. at least in my current reality, one day hopefully I'll be living a completely different life in a completely different place. But where I can, I try to stop or at least lower the frequency of when I'm doing things that don't resonate. And that one massive part of that was drinking alcohol. And obviously that is something that I can control, and it's also something that I was very scared would develop into a bigger problem. So I was kind of just like, I'm just going to kick it in the balls now. And just, what's the saying? I don't think that's quite the right word. But before it became, obviously it was a bad habit for me because I felt like I needed to drink because other people were drinking. So automatically that is a bad habit. But obviously that can turn into a lot worse of problems that I don't want to experience and I won't wish on anyone. So yeah, that is kind of just why I stopped drinking alcohol. And I encourage you, next time you feel like drinking, just, to think why. And if it's because you want to drink, whatever. Just, I try to be a lot more conscious about it. And I think that is one way that society could improve in general, is if people just live more consciously. And this leads me on to the next thing that I'm going to be talking about, which will probably be the last thing I talk about in this episode. And that is how I'm aligning with my higher self. So, as I have mentioned before, I don't really have a label for it, if I'm being honest. I feel like the term spiritual is very broad and it's a big spectrum. But I don't really have a label for myself right now in terms of spirituality. I do believe in the law of attraction and manifestation, and I do believe in, I like to refer to them as higher powers. For me, this means, this is the universe and my spirit guides and kind of just that section of things. If I don't, like I said, I don't really know what the right term for this is, and it's still something that I'm exploring in terms of what I would label it as. But for me, it's something that I'm incorporating into my life a lot to help me become more aware of myself and the things around me and others around me, if that makes sense. So that is kind of one thing that set off my, I'm going to try and not drink alcohol for 6 weeks, because I was trying to figure out if that was something that I wanted to align myself with, if that was a way that I could become more aligned with my higher self and the person that I want to become, which obviously I now know that that wasn't something I wanted to align myself with. So now this I put in terms of many things and aspects of my life. It's not just the alcohol thing. It's something that I ask myself kind of on a daily basis. If I find myself, I used to be a little bit of a bad road rager. Not in terms of like I'd actually get angry, but just in terms of where I'd be like, why'd you do that? Or just like, maybe curse a little bit, which I'm not going to do on here because then I have to mark it as explicit. But say I let someone go and they didn't say thank you, I'd be like, well, why'd you do that? I let you go. And it was kind of more of just like a sarcastic comment. And now I do it less. I do still do it. But I have found myself, doing it less. What I have found myself doing more often is just expressing gratitude when I'm driving. A lot of the time this is like, when I get a good parking space, I'll be like, thank you for this parking space. Or if I manage to like, I'm coming up to the lights and they turn green before I go through them, if that makes sense. So like I'm coming up to it and it's red, but before I stop it turns green, so I don't have to stop. It's just so satisfying. I find myself just saying thank you a lot more and expressing gratitude. And as I actually started finding myself doing it just automatically. Like a lot of the time I won't even think about it, and I'll just be like, oh, thank you for whatever it is. I have also started doing a little prayer before I set off my journey a lot of the time, and sometimes actually it's after I've just started my journey. But like I said, I do believe in the higher powers and the universe, and so praying is something that I have incorporated more recently. It did start off as like a written prayer in journals and stuff, because I do love to journal. And what I usually do is I just say, dear universe, angels, guides, etc., that sort of thing. And then I'll say my prayer, and then I'll say, I trust you providing this for me. Thank you. Express the gratitude. Obviously, it is something that I have started doing a lot more, especially when I'm driving. I do have a little bit of anxiety when it comes to the road, and it's not even because of my driving, it's because of other people around me. I mean, this all started when, people don't indicate a lot of the time. A lot of people, especially where I live, just don't indicate. That gives me trust issues when it comes to road users. So I kind of forgot where I was going with that. But yeah, that's something that I started incorporating more recently. I pray that I have a safe journey, and that myself and other road users and just people around me are, safe, and that everything goes smoothly. So that is one way that I've practiced gratitude, which is something that aligns me with my higher self, is just practicing gratitude. And it's a good way to practice gratitude on a daily basis. I go in my car pretty much every day, whether that's just a quick 10-minute journey or a little bit longer or whatever it is. It's kind of, my car has become a place for me. It just automatically tells me, okay, right, it's time to say a prayer or express gratitude, or both a lot of the time actually. And as well, sometimes I just talk to myself whilst I'm driving, and I feel like that is going to sound crazy to some people, but it's something that I find a little comfort in. I used to feel uncomfortable in silence, especially if I was by myself. I'd feel like there just needs to be something. And so I've started just, talking to myself. Sometimes I will, pretend I'm recording a podcast or whatever, and that is actually usually what I do. Or, sometimes I just feel like I'm having a conversation with the universe and spirit and stuff. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a conversation with myself then, is it? It's just something that I'm talking out loud, for other people, other beings to listen in. And again, this is something that helps me practice gratitude, but also it helps me become more aware of my feelings. And that is something, again, that makes me feel more aligned with my higher self. So yeah, that is kind of just a few things that I do. Something else that I do, especially over the past month or two, is I try to go outside every day. Now, this is something that living in England is not always doable, because the weather is very up and down and rains a lot, and it's starting to get cold and windy. But I have been going outside for at least 10 minutes every day. I was eating my dinner outside every day, and this was something I would do. I'd just go out there. A lot of the time I wouldn't have my phone. I'd just go and sit out there and eat my dinner. So I'm just gonna have a drink real quick. And this was just something that really helped me connect with the earth, basically, and just nature. I know that some people might find that a little bit, cringy to hear, but it was very energizing, spiritually, for me to sit outside, breathing in the fresh air, and, eating good food, things that made me feel good, and just sitting outside, watching, whether it be, the sunset, or I have a lot of wildlife near my garden, like there's always birds, and when it starts getting dark, there's actually a bat that flies around my garden. Don't know where this bat comes from. Could possibly be from, you know, how like birds sometimes make what are they called, nests, like in your houses. Your house, not like your house, but like your gutters and stuff. I don't know where bats live, but there is always a bat. Every single year, there is at least one bat that flies around my garden, and it is usually around like when it's starting to get dark. So it's nice to watch the bat, and there's foxes that come in our garden, and as well, my dogs go in the garden all the time, and there's cats as well. So it's nice to sit outside and just watch, the wildlife come out, especially like I said when it's getting dark and the bat comes out, because obviously you don't see bats very often, or at least I don't. So that is really nice, and as well I just love looking at the sky and the moon especially. Oh my goodness, I love the moon. But yeah, that is something that it just makes me feel so connected to the earth and nature and the universe. And as well, it just gives me time to not be thinking constantly, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just admiring and just having some, like, quiet time and no screen time as well. Now, occasionally whilst I'm eating, I will watch something on YouTube or Netflix, but I won't go on social media, if that makes sense. I am trying to not go on social media at all when I eat. Like every time I eat, I'll try not to go on social media. And this leads me to the next thing that I do to align myself with my higher self, and that is limiting social media. I did a week without social media, and it was very helpful. Now, I've always been a bit conflicted because I love to create content, and a large part of that is social media, especially as someone who has now found that the thing that is the most accessible to post on for me is TikTok, which obviously is social media, but I've kind of just said to myself, like, you can post on TikTok. Doesn't mean you need to spend loads of time on TikTok, if that makes sense. The other thing as well that just doesn't resonate with me is Instagram. Like, I always just use Instagram just to scroll, and I tried to post regularly on Instagram to promote, my podcast and my other social media platforms, but it doesn't feel authentic to me. And I think the biggest thing that is helping me become more aligned is thinking, does this feel authentic? And if it doesn't feel authentic to me, if possible, obviously, like I said earlier, there's some things that you just have to do. I won't do it if possible, or I just do it less often. So, yeah, social media is a funny one. A lot of the time I would use social media just a way to compare myself, my life, my body, whatever it is, to other people. And something that you just have to remember with social media is that a lot of the time, social media isn't real. What you see on social media is the highlights of someone's day, or the posed version of, whether that's a picture of them or something that is, what's the word? It's put together for the purpose of that content. It's not necessarily something that is real or realistic, or to some extent. I'm not saying that all content you see is fake. And I think nowadays the nice thing is that more people are becoming more realistic when it comes to what they post online, and just making it, at least they say, right, this is posed or whatever it is. But I feel like a lot of the people, at least that I follow and consume their content, are being more realistic about, what they show. They say, or just remember, this is posed, or these are just the highlights, or, they do show the ups and downs, and it just makes you feel like, you know, you're not alone, which is something that is always nice to feel, that you're not alone in your struggles, if that makes sense. Obviously, I'm not saying it's nice to know that other people are struggling, but it does help to know that other people have gone through and survived what you may or may not also be going through. So yeah, I just like to ask myself, you know, does this feel authentic to me? If it doesn't, then I'll try not to do that thing as much. It is very difficult to just go cold turkey, I will admit that, and I feel like that is kind of just a given, to be honest. Going cold turkey with anything can be difficult. But yeah, I think that is all for this episode. Thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you want to stay up to date on my life, especially when the end of the season of the podcast comes, but just in general, like I said, I will be about 2 weeks behind. No, I will be about 2 weeks ahead of the podcast. So like each podcast episode will be 2 weeks behind of my current life, if that makes sense. So if you do want to consume my other content to keep up with my life, keep more updated is in a general rule of thumb, then feel free to go on my other social medias, which I'll have linked in the description. The one that I post on the most will most likely be TikTok. As I said, I'm not a fan of Instagram. I do use it as a way to promote my other content, but I will try and post on there, just, you know, just to show you guys what's going on. But yeah, I just feel what feels good. I'll just post what feels good for me, and yeah, so my TikTok will probably be the most updated version of my content. But yeah, I really, really, really hoped you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you next week.